Thank you for watching. This is a camera angle that you have, well, you've never seen it before actually, but this is one of my biggest trucks, and if I would film it from my other camera, you would not be able to see me, so it would end up looking really weird, I think. However, I completed this thing. It's never really completed, but for the time being, I think it is completed. And I added some of the cheapest parts that I've ever been able to purchase to it. I've also added some of the most expensive parts that I've ever owned to it. And I think the combination of the two does look quite striking. If you wonder how I made this thing, this is an SCX6 that I sawed in half, or I didn't saw it in half, I just unbolted it and I cut up the shell, made a canopy for it, stretched it, because I wanted to have a Gladiator. There's a full build series on this thing that I will make sure is linked in the video description box, and that this video will also be a part of. Some of the items that I wanted to have for this Gladiator that I was not able to source anywhere else was a bit more detailed louvres or air intakes or air outtakes, whatever they are, in the front hood. So you have those increased in size hood louvers that you would find on the SCX10 version 3 that have been like increased in size for them to make them fit on this SCX6. So in that I felt like it's one of the few parts of the SCX6 where really a bit of detail is lacking. These are like mesh grills in stainless. They're black. I'm not sure if they're anodized or whatever they did to it. However, they do look really great. Add a fantastic amount of detail, I think. These cost about $8 or $10 for the set. You do need to make sure that you keep track of them when you're popping them out. I lost one and it took me about 3 hours before I found it again on the bottom of my sock. So this is something, if you want to keep busy during the winter days, highly recommend it. Just pop them out of the frame that they come in, throw them on your carpet, walk around and have fun with it, because you will not be bored with it. You also have the cowboy head in the interior, and that dude looks like he is like he comes out of a tomb or something. He's like very expressionless, has like this colorless face, and is then wearing a cowboy hat, but it's really like driving a zombie around. I wanted to get rid of that cowboy. In the first SCX6 that I did, I added some disco flair to the cowboy by giving him some Pitt Viper glasses, a weird beard and some coloring on his face. In this case, I just wanted to completely replace the head with something that looks a bit more recognizable. So I managed to source again on AliExpress a tiny Brad Pitt head. Do keep in mind, this head does not come with a neck. They do have some driver figure heads that you will be able to buy that do come with a neck. Brad Pitt is not one of them. So I needed to whittle a neck for Brad Pitt, and I did that using a knife, some sanding paper and a broomstick. Of course I did not use the complete broomstick, because then I would have made like really dumb looking hole in the roof of the truck. So what is it, like an inch I guess of broomstick eventually is what I used. Once I had the shape, of course I needed to match the color, because having like a wood colored neck under that face would have looked wrong. So what I used to do that is makeup. So I stole one of my kids' makeup kits to kind of add some skin tones to that neck to make it match the face, and I think it turned out really well. Used some glue to mount it to the head, then that neck. So I used some shoe glue, and then one screw in the bottom just to secure them to that body. That body needs some extra detail. The body shape is kind of molded in with the interior, and it is all black. I do want to add some extra color, but I'm going to do that at a later stage. For now, I think having a bit more of an expression on that face is what I was really after, and that is mission accomplished with that Brad Pitt. So that's pretty cool. The canopy that I made, I'm really happy with the way that turned out, but it did need to have some extra detail. I really want to go for that overland adventure type of look, and for that you of course also need to have some sort of power supply. So I added some solar panels. I found these again on AliExpress. These cost next to nothing. These cost like $1.50, $2 a piece. I bought 10 of them. I put 4 on this canopy, just really deck it out. And these are functioning solar panels. I'm not sure what you would be able to power with them if you would solder up some wires to it. I'm not going to attempt that either because I'm really not interested in that. Power all my stuff using Gens Ace batteries, and that is more than enough to power this truck for hours and hours and hours. But it does mean that with this being an actual solar panel, that it looks extremely realistic, because it is on the front. So you have really that solar panel look. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but it has like a type of an oily sheen on it. And in this case as well, I just think that it adds a great amount of extra dimension to the look of this truck. Another part that I added from AliExpress is these tents. So I have one on either side, so you can tell that it's like a pull-out canopy or whatever you want to call it. This is usually made for 10 scale trucks. Now, scale these days is really open for interpretation, or it's kind of been like that for a number of years. But for example, some of the 10 scale stuff that gets released is really a lot bigger. For example, the new Element RC Bushido is really more of a 1 to 7.5 type of truck. I would say back in the day already with the RC 4-wheel drive Gelände, that thing was like a 8.3 scale, I think. And these tents, I think, or these pull-out canopies, whatever you want to call them, I think they look rather large on 10 scale trucks, which is what they are sold for. And I figured that I would be able to get away with it on this 6th scale Gladiator as well. If you would imagine that this is a full-size truck and you would walk up to the back of it, you would be able to stand under this. And for that reason, I figured that this would work. Also, the length of them is pretty much spot on. And rather than having those legs mounted or pointing towards the ground like they are intended, I wanted to point them towards the canopy, towards this canopy that I made from styrene. I think that it looks great. It works well the way that it sits right now. This is of course more like a diorama type of thing than something that you're actually going to like use or whatever. But for some photo ops, this is a good looking setup, and I'm really happy with the quality of these. These cost a little less than 20 bucks. I think 16 to 18 bucks would be able to source them. They come with some ARB stickers. I'm 100% sure they're not officially licensed, but cool nevertheless. Do take care when mounting them, because really tiny screws and tiny nuts and bolts and all that stuff, but it does look the part once it is on there. Now let's go to the more expensive stuff. Wheels and tires. So I finally added some Super Swampers. So these are officially licensed Interco Super Swampers made by Proline Racing. I also added some dual stage foams on the insides of these tires, and I think that on any type of SCX6 is the biggest favor that you can do yourself, and also the biggest upgrade are those foams. These dual stages are plenty stiff, and it will make sure that I don't have that weird tire limping that I had going on, especially on this SCX6, which is really the heaviest truck in my collection of trail trucks. Another thing that will really help, especially seeing that I increased the wheelbase on this Gladiator, is the larger offset that I have going on these Spec RC wheels. So these are just wheel fronts. They are custom Cerakoted by Z-Truck Garage, and I will make sure that there's a link to Z-Truck Garage in the video description of this video that takes you to his Instagram. He does great work. This color is something that I wanted to have a fluorescent yellow that would really approach the yellow that I have going on in those HemiStorm logos on the doors, and also in that 1962 that you see on the hood. I put the 62 on the hood. You might be familiar with Jeep putting like 1941 on the hood of some special edition Wranglers, and I put 62 on here because that's the first year when they released the Gladiator. So that's kind of like a nod to Jeep and to their special editions. Now, in order to copy that color, I think Z-Truck Garage managed to do like a blend of like a lime yellow and like a slime green or whatever it was called, and mix those two colors together and get a tint that actually is really close to that yellow that is going on the doors. Before this I had black wheels. They also looked really great, but I think that this yellow just sets it off a tiny bit more, and it's a bit more of a coherent look for like the finished look of this truck. I do want to do like a performance test to compare it to some of my other SCX6s, and in order to do that I think it is only fair to take the canopy off. I'm not sure if you are familiar with what I did over here, but you will see that on the inside there's another Gladiator. So there's an SCX24 Gladiator with a battery that is exposing itself currently. And that's, of course, that's a ton of extra weight that if I really want to give it like a performance shakedown, I do not need to carry that around with solder panels, sand ladders, all this tent stuff. So 2 screws will take this whole thing off and make it ready for some performance action. And that will give me an opportunity as well to kind of compare it to the other SCX6 that I built, which is a short wheel based one. And that thing, performance-wise, I think is really kind of setting the bar in how much fun you can have with a truck like this. This thing is also an incredible amount of fun, but performance-wise, pretty sure that the short wheelbase one outperforms it. I hope this shows you that sometimes a little can go a really long way, like in terms of these AliExpress editions. I never thought that I would say that, but these are items you can't find them anywhere else. I don't recommend buying any of the clone stuff or copy stuff on AliExpress, but these items, these are really unique, I think, to AliExpress. Again, those solder panels, really easy to repurpose them from whatever it is that they're originally intended for to RC. They also work really well on 10 scale trucks. Those driver heads are really great. I like those tents. And then, of course, those wheels, they really knock it out of the park. Go check everything out in the video description box. Everything is listed over there. If you want to know more about how I built this thing, check out all the videos in the playlist. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section and we'll try to get back to you. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
Back on.